الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Brother Chairman, respected professors at the Faculty of Engineering, our topic is an Islamic eschatological explanation of modern Western civilization. At the end of the lecture comes the interesting part when we look at the Malhama, or what the Christians call Armageddon, the Great War, and what will the world look like post-Malhama. So let us begin with Allah's blessed name. And we always begin with the Book of Allah, which says to us in Surah Al-Nahl, Surah number 18, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء إلى آخر الآية. And we send down this book on thee, O Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, that this book might explain all things. The most amazing, mysterious, inexplicable event in human history is the emergence of modern Western civilization. There's never been a civilization like this. And so there must be something in the Quran which will help us to understand it, which explains it. The Quran speaks to us in Surah Al-Ma'idah about a time which is to come. لَتَجِدَنَّ, you will most certainly find in time to come. أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودِ. They may say anti-Semitism. But you can't speak about the word of Allah like that. Be careful, Zionists. Be careful with the Quran. You can bark elsewhere, but don't bark at the Quran. You will most certainly find in time to come that those who will have the greatest hatred and greatest enmity and hostility for you would be the Jews. Question. Proper methodology. Let's begin. Is Allah speaking about all Jews? If the answer is yes, well, you're just still a schoolboy. That's a schoolboy methodology. No. You do not take any verse of the Quran in isolation to derive meaning and to conclude meaning. Not at all. If you do that, then you will have to conclude that when Allah ordered the angels, al-malaika, to make sajda before Adam alayhi salam, and they all made sajda except Iblis, you will have to conclude that Iblis was an angel. Iblis was an angel. Why? Because I use this schoolboy defective methodology of coming to a conclusion based on the study of one ayah. But when you do the proper thing, you study with the proper methodology, you go to the whole Quran, you see, no, Iblis could not have been an angel. Why? Because Allah says in the Quran, وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. Angels don't have any choice. When Allah gives a command, they have to obey. But he disobeyed, so he could not have been an angel. And then you go to another part of the Quran where Allah speaks plainly and clearly and says, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. So proper methodology is that Allah is not speaking about all Jews. No. That you will most certainly find in time to come that those who will have the greatest hatred and enmity and hostility for you would be Jews. وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. Not only the Jews, but another people beside them, who would be in the most outward form of shirk. But at that time, when you will find this phenomenon, you'll also find something else. What is it? وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى. That at that time when this phenomenon emerges of the hostility and hatred and enmity of Jews, and of those who are in the most outward form of shirk, for you Muslims. At that time you will find that those who have the greatest love and affection for you would be those who say, we are Nasara, we are Christians. ذلك بأن منهم القسيسين والرهبان وأنهم لا يستكبرون. And this is because they're not an arrogant people. They are not an arrogant people. They are a humble people. And amongst them, there are priests and monks. So who are these Christians? Who at that time when the Jews are so hostile to us, who are those Christians who at that time would have love and affection for us? Are there Christians of whom the Quran speaks positively? That's the first place to look for the answer. And yes, there is a surah of the Quran entitled Surah Rum. And in Surah Rum, the word Rum occurs only once in the whole Quran, only once. Who is Rum? Allah speaks and He says, Alif Lam Mim, Ghulibat Rum. Rum has been defeated. Fi adna al-ard, in a land close by. This is at the time when the Quran was revealed. I don't think there was a United States of America at that time, was there? Was there?
No.
Please help me.
No.
The Salafis are after me all the time. So I want to know whether there was a United States of America at that time when the Quran was revealed. Huh? My Salafi critics, I like them so much. Fi adna al-ard, in a land close by. Close by to where? Is this Chicago or is it Washington? A land close by to where the Quran is being revealed, in Arabia. That's where it is. So we have to look for Rome out there. وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين. But in a few years' time, the tables will be turned. Allah is speaking. And defeat will be replaced with victory. Rome will be victorious. So these are facts of history. You can't cook this up into a biryani. Who is Rome? on, answer me, my Salafi crickets. Who is Rome? Answer, there's only one answer. You can dodge and dodge and dodge as you want, there's only one answer. Rome is the Byzantine Orthodox Christian Empire. There is no other answer. You can dodge as much as you want. The Byzantine Orthodox Christian Empire, which was based in Constantinople. لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد. On the first occasion when they were defeated, and on the subsequent occasion when they will be victorious, it's all because of Allah's authority and command. لله الأمر. وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. And on that day when Rome is victorious, the Muslims will celebrate. You can't take this out of the Quran. Don't try. The Muslims will celebrate when Rome is victorious. So the Quran establishes a positive relationship between the world of Islam and Rome. A positive relationship. So the first place we should look for those who will eventually become a Christian people who will show the greatest love and affection for us Muslims. The first place we should look is not Washington and Paris and London and Brussels with its NATO. No. The first place we should look, if we have to have integrity of scholarship in studying Islam, is Rome. But the Quran doesn't stop there. It says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have faith in Allah Most High. This is a command. لا تتخذوا اليهود والنصارى أولياء. Do not take the Jews and do not take the Christians as your friends and allies. And so, question, is Allah speaking about all Jews? And is He speaking about all Christians? Now we know that's schoolboy stuff. He could not be speaking about all Jews and all Christians. No. Proper methodology. We have to dismiss that. Well then, if He's not speaking about all Jews and all Christians, when He says, do not take the Jews and do not take the Christians as your friends and allies, the question is, which Jews and which Christians? Is that a legitimate question? Yes, it is. What's the answer? The answer is there in the words which follow, because this Quran is Kitabul Mubin, it's plain and clear. Ba'aduhum awliya'u ba'd. Do not take such Jews and do not take such Christians as your friends and allies. Ba'aduhum awliya'u ba'd, who themselves are friends and allies of each other. The Quran is anticipating a time which is to come when there will be a reconciliation and friendship and alliance between part of the Christian world, not the whole Christian world, and part of the Jewish world, not the whole Jewish world. When that alliance comes into being, then we Muslims are prohibited from being their friends and allies. وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُمْ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. And whosoever from amongst you turn to them with friendship and alliance, enter into their embrace, whether it is political, or whether it is economic, or whether it is monetary, or whether it is educational, or whether it is in entertainment and sport, whatever it may be, if you enter into their embrace, وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُمْ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. You no longer belong to the ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wa salam. You now belong to them. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Surely Allah will not provide guidance for a wicked people. Now let me relax a little bit. I got an invitation from Senegal. I like Senegal. I've been there once before, about 30 years ago. About a year ago, they contacted me. We want you to come to this big Islamic conference taking place in December. And I said, sure, alhamdulillah, I'd love to come. And they kept on reminding me about it. And I kept on saying, yes, I will come. Sheikh, we want you there. We love you in Senegal. My French is not too great, but still I could understand French and I could speak a little bit. Then they sent me the program, the conference. And when I went through the program, I saw the name of former President Bill Clinton. That he's going to be addressing the conference, so I sent a letter to them right away. I will not disgrace myself. And I will not disgrace the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam in participating in any conference, Islamic conference, in which Bill Clinton is invited to address the conference, or any representative of the government of the United States of America. You can be annoyed with me, that's your business. I will not disgrace myself and disgrace the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. That was my response. Why? Because I can see the Jewish-Christian alliance. It is this Jewish-Christian alliance which came into being and was cemented by something called Zionism, which has its mission to liberate the Holy Land for the Jews, to bring the Jews back to the Holy Land, to reclaim it as their own 2,000 years after Allah had expelled them. And having expelled them, he said, وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا أَنَّهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. You can never return to reclaim this town as you own after I've destroyed it. You can never return. Hatta, until, and we'll let you know what it is. So I recognize that it is the Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance which is at the heart of modern Western civilization. That it is this modern Western civilization which gave to the world a continuing scientific and technological revolution, which gave to it unprecedented military power. For the first time in human history, one civilization with a military power to take control of the whole world. And then use that military power to wage a Western jihad a Western jihad against the rest of the world. At the point of a bloody sword, and to colonize the rest of the world. In their jihad, they call it crusade. It's a jihad. And Bill Clinton is one of the foremost figures in that alliance. Every American president. If an American president steps out of line, they do to them what they did to JFK. If an American president steps out of line, they do to them what they did to John F. Kennedy. You're not supposed to step out of line. So I said to them, I will not disgrace myself and disgrace the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam by attending an Islamic conference in a Muslim country to be addressed by Bill Clinton or any representative of the US government. I gave that answer because my ilmu akhir al-zaman, or Islamic eschatology, allowed me to recognize the reality of modern Western civilization using the Book of Allah. That's the importance of this subject. Modern Western civilization passed through certain stages in the process of serving the mission of Al-Masih al-Dajjal. Who is Al-Masih al-Dajjal is not taught in your engineering faculty. He is someone created by Allah, whose mission it is to impersonate the true Messiah and get the Jews to believe that he is the true Messiah, when in fact he would be the false Messiah. When Allah sent the true Messiah, Allah tested them, and they failed the test. They said he's a bastard. They said he's a bastard. And a bastard cannot be the Messiah. And then when they saw him dying on the cross before their very eyes, no, he could not be the Messiah. Why? He is dead. He never ruled the world from Jerusalem. The golden age never came back. The Holy Land is still under Roman rule. What they did not know, and no one knew until the Quran was revealed, was it was Jibreel alayhi salam who came to her in the form of a human being to inform her, you're going to have a baby boy. And he's going to be the Messiah. And she said, how can I have a baby boy when no man has ever touched me? And he said, it's a matter decreed by Allah. يَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ. He can do whatever he wants. What they did not know, and no one knew until the Quran was revealed, was that no, they did not kill him. No, they did not crucify him. Allah made it appear like that. And if we have the time, the Quran can explain to you what happened. And Allah raised it. So he never experienced maut. What is maut?
Yes.
Maut is when Allah takes the soul and does not return it. Or, so can Allah take the soul and return it? Huh? Is that possible? Yeah. In Surah Al-Zumar, Allah takes the soul and Allah can return it when you're sleeping. So one day, he's going to come back, the true Messiah. But they rejected him. They say he's a bastard. وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ هَذَا. And they're waiting for the Messiah to come. So that's why Allah created the false Messiah. And the false Messiah is the mastermind who created modern Western civilization. Only Islamic eschatology can give that answer, no one else. No one else. And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, about Dajjal, and if you want to study Dajjal, make sure you know politics. Make sure you know economics. Make sure you know monetary economics. Make sure you know world history. If you want to study Dajjal, don't enter this subject unless you have a versatile scholarship. Make sure you have proper methodology for studying the Quran. And that proper methodology will be able to identify for you fabricated ahadith. Like that, fabricated ahadith. Fabricated hadith. That Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said, the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam married me when I was 6. Sahih Bukhari. If you accept that to be true, then I ask you to show just 5 ringgit worth of integrity. That's all. Stand up and say, I am prepared to marry a 6-year-old girl. If he could do it, then it is sunnah. If it is a sunnah to marry a 6-year-old girl, then how come you're not doing it? If you have integrity, if you say the hadith is valid, it is true, then how come you're not prepared to even say it? Come on, I challenge you. Say it. No one has done it in human history. From the time of the Prophet ﷺ to this day, how many Muslims have married a 6-year-old girl? How many? Why have you abandoned the sunnah so shamelessly? The answer is the hadith is fabricated. It is in conflict with the Quran. So proper methodology is required. Because when you come to ilmu akhiru zaman, you're entering into a minefield. They put mines there. You step on it, the ship will blow up. Sometimes the hadith is fabricated, and sometimes a part of the hadith is fabricated. The rest is okay. So you've got to be able to recognize the fabrication. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, when Dajjal is released, he'll live on earth for 40 days. There's a book outside of mine entitled Jerusalem in the Quran, and the cover of the book, designed by a Malay artist, you see 3 circles based on this hadith. So when Dajjal is released, he'll live on earth for 40 days. One day, yawmun kasana, one day which would be like a year. Oh, wait a minute, this is the Faculty of Engineering. So you know about space and time in this university. One day which will be like a year. Yawmun kashahr, one day which will be like a month. Yawmun kajum'ah, one day which will be like a week. وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ, and all his days, meaning all the rest of his days, would be like your days. When his day is like our day, he would be in our world of space and time. So you'll be able to see him. He'll be a Jew. He'll be a young man. He'll be powerfully built. He'll have curls. The Orthodox Jews have curls because of what is in the Torah. And from Jerusalem he will declare, I am the Messiah. My estimate is that that's not too long from now when that's going to happen. But before he enters into our world of space and time, he's born of Jewish parents, Dajjal will not succeed in convincing any Jew that he is the Messiah unless they know who are his parents. They have to be able to trace the bloodline. That this man is from the house of David, Dawood alayhi salam, if he is to be accepted. So he can't just drop out of the sky with a star. No, you have to know his pedigree. You have to know who his parents and grandparents and so on. So at that time, Dajjal will be born as a human being. But before that, he's not in our world of space and time, but he's here on earth. Are there angels in this auditorium? Of course there are. Can you see them? No, you can't. But they're here. There are two on your shoulders. Can you see them? No. Are there jinn in this auditorium? Yes. Each one of us has a jinn attached to us. Can we see them? No, we can't. But they're here. So Dajjal is here, but you can't see him. So in stage one, a day which is like a year is the longest one. And then comes a shorter one, a day which is like a month. And then comes the shortest one, a day which is like a week. Perhaps. I don't know. This is what is in the Christian, the Jewish scriptures. When they spoke of the mark of Dajjal, the beast, 666. 666 would be 600 plus 60 plus 6. 600 being a big number, 60 being a much smaller number, and 6 being a very, very small number. So a day like a year, a day like a month, a day like a week. And during these 3 stages, he is advancing towards his goal of eventually ruling the world from Jerusalem. If you want to rule the world, that has political implications. If you want to rule the world, that has economic implications. If you want to rule the world, that has monetary implications. If you want to rule the world, that has military implications. So the student of Dajjal has work to do. I noticed that the hadith speaks of Dajjal, the hadith of Tamim al-Dari, as being on an island. So when he's released, he'll be released from that island. In my book, Jerusalem in the Quran, I came to the conclusion the island is Britain. And I gave a substantial amount of evidence to support my claim. But if you want to say Singapore, that's your choice. That's your choice. No need for any boxing gloves over it. This is my view. It's Britain. And I noticed that in a year which is like, in a day which is like a year, Britain emerged as the ruling state of the world in what is known in international relations as Pax Britannica. The Pax Britannica did not drop out of the sky. No, there is an explanation for the emergence of Pax Britannica, and that is Dajjal. I noticed that Britain had to wage great wars to assume that position. Great naval wars. Britain became the ruler of the seas. That's your homework. But I also noticed the emergence of something called the Bank of England. And paper money. This scam called paper money. And I noticed the sterling pound moving from gold to paper. And then the sterling pound becoming the universal currency, and Britain becoming the financial capital of the world. And none of this is happening by accident. If you believe that this is happening by accident, you've got peanuts in your head. You have to excuse me. I'm 72. And I've been in this field for a long time. So sometimes my language now betrays the agony I just can't get the scholars of Islam to agree with me. Everybody else agrees with me, but not the ulama. So it's a case of frustration. Yeah. So you have to kindly excuse me. And then I noticed a mysterious change taking place, not by accident. The great wars take place and Britain sinks. And the sterling pound sinks with it. Britain can no longer command the authority of the sterling pound. And the United States, that maverick, born just 200 years ago, takes over from Britain. And the US dollar replaces the sterling pound as the international currency. I attended a conference of independent thinkers in Iran 2 weeks ago. There was a galaxy of independent thinkers from all over the world. And it was a joy to be in the presence of these people. The only place in the world where they could gather is in Iran, nowhere else. And during the course of the conference, there was a professor, a university professor from Canada, sitting close to me. A professor of history, political history, written huge works on history. And his mind began to work over time when he began to listen to our eschatology. And then he surprised me with something I never thought about. He said to me, the United States was a baby in the womb of Britain, incubating within the womb of Britain. Pax Americana, he said, was in the womb of Pax Britannica, incubating. But Pax Britannica never knew that this baby, when it's born, is going to grow up and take over from the mother. As though a slave woman will give birth to her mistress. And he says the same thing is happening now, Imran. The United States is now in irreversible decline. I didn't need political analysis for that. I only needed Islamic eschatology. About 20 years ago, those who know me will know, for 20 years now I've been saying the US dollar is going to crash. And the whole monetary system will collapse. Where did I get that knowledge from? Was it some jinn? That's what the Salafi are now saying. No, it's analysis. Political and economic and monetary analysis based on ilmu akhirul zaman. That crash is coming. Guess who wants to crash? Of course it'll have to be a big war, because that's what happened the last time. But this big war is going to be the war of all wars. The Prophet ﷺ called it the Malhama. The Christians call it Armageddon. Don't blame me for it. It's there. We all know about it. I realized in the conference that it is the malhama and only the malhama which can bring down the US dollar. Otherwise, the US dollar is still flying high. And so long as the US dollar is flying high, the United States is the ruling state of the world. But he said to me, the baby is incubating. Pax Judaica is incubating in the womb of Pax Americana. History is repeating itself. I said to him, MashaAllah, a secular scholar, and you were able to recognize something so important that I did not recognize. So this is where we are now. A day which is like a month is coming to an end, and a day which is like a week is about to commence. And if we are not conscious of that, something is wrong. We're just eating biryani and going to sleep. Ulaika kal-an'am. Allah says they're just like cattle. Bal hum adall. They have eyes and yet do not see. They have ears and yet do not hear. They have hearts and yet do not understand. They're just like cattle. So all you have to do is to give them 1,000 US dollars a day. That's what is being offered them. And where is the money coming from? You just have to print the paper, that's all. No big thing. You need a printing press, you need ink, you need paper, and you can print the US dollars and give it to them. And from all over the world, these cattle will go to wage their bogus jihad. Their bogus jihad for ISIS. Your bogus jihad with US dollars and with arms provided by Saudi Arabia, the client state of Israel. Yes, go ahead and wage your bogus jihad. Allah's punishment is coming. You better stop where you are and study the Quran. They need the big war. And that's why they've been targeting Russia. Been targeting Russia for a long time now. But now it's coming closer over Crimea. Will Russia ever give up Crimea? Never. Never. No Russian government can ever give up Crimea. And yet the loss of Crimea was the biggest slap on the face for the Zionist world since the Zionist movement was created. I'm conscious that I'm taking sharp corners with you. You have to read to understand how I'm moving with the lecture. And so the baby is incubating, and the big war will take place, the Malhama. In order for a day which is like a month to end and a day which is like a week to commence. And Israel would now seek to replace the United States as the new ruling state in the world. The US dollar collapses, of course, with the Malhama. I was thinking that perhaps we have about maybe 5 to 10 years left before the Malhama takes place. And of course our Prophet said about the Malhama, it will be such a great war that birds flying in the sky will fall down. So I asked myself, why? The best place to seek an answer is Faculty of Engineering. They'll fall down because they can't navigate. Why can't they navigate? Because the nuclear explosions, perhaps, will produce some kind of electromagnetic waves or radiation and so on. This is your field, not mine. And so the birds can no longer navigate. Therefore aircraft cannot fly. Therefore cruise missiles cannot fly. Therefore aerial warfare is gone after the Malhama. So all that remains will be naval warfare and land warfare after the Malhama. If Israel is to take over from the United States after the Malhama, what is going to be money? What is it that's going to replace the US dollar? Perhaps there will be some form of electronic money which can still be revived. I don't know. I do know that they plan to have electronic money to replace paper money, digital money. And when that happens, that will be the financial Guantanamo for us all. That's why my students are building Muslim villages, kampung. And in our kampung we have little markets. And in our markets we're using dinar and dirham as money. My students in Cape Town are already minting coins. They have the machinery and they're minting. My students in Cape Town have already started a market. The market is being held once a month, but they want to make it once a week. And all those who come to the market to buy and to sell leave their South African rands and they change it to dinar or dirham, and they use dinar and dirham in the market. This is what my students are already doing. This is the way to respond to the coming digital and electronic money, which is the financial Guantanamo. But Israel will have to bring back gold and silver as money. Why? Why? Answer: because every Jew knows that this is bogus money. That this paper money is bogus money. The only people who don't know that, kindly excuse me, are the ulama of Islam. Everybody else knows it's bogus. So the Jews know that when the Messiah comes, they'll have to have real money, which is dinar and dirham, whatever name you give it. So for Dajjal to successfully impersonate the Messiah, Israel has to restore gold and silver as money. Do you know that gold and silver is already legal tender in Israel? Do you know that? Do you know that gold and silver is already legal tender in several states of the United States of America? Do you know that? Shame. Shame. Shame on the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Shame on us. Shame on us. Shame on us. You can go to Israel today and buy gold and silver. You can use it as money already. If Israel is to command the world of money, it means that Israel has to control the gold of the world. And that's what they've been doing. They've been seizing all the gold that they could get. Germany put her gold in the Second World War in the United States. I don't know, about 2,000 tons or what. Will Germany ever get back that gold? No. The Germans are begging, at least allow us to send an auditor to go and check it. No, said the United States. You can't even see the gold. Which is why perhaps, I don't know, I hope it happens, Germany might quit the European Union. Because the gold has already been transferred to Israel, that's why. The Vatican lost its gold, I think about 80 tons. Only one sensible man was Gaddafi. One sensible man. And that's why they killed him. And these fools, absolute fools with a capital F, taking weapons from NATO to wage their Yankee jihad in Libya. And come to tell me that's a jihad? No, because of your foolishness. NATO is now in control of Libya. So when Egypt's throat is to be cut, it'll be cut from both sides because of you fools. So go ahead and take your 1,000 US dollar a day and join ISIS. Wait for Allah's punishment to come on you. This is Imran Hossein speaking. How will Israel be able to rule the world? It has to be with the control of most of the gold reserves of the world. Now let us share with you the hadith. Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about akhiru zaman, he said that the earth will vomit from its liver columns of gold and silver. Alhamdulillah. وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. Where will it happen? I didn't know until I went to Java 2 months ago, and I heard that all over Java they're digging for gold. Why? Because they have active volcanoes in Indonesia. And these volcanoes sometimes erupt gold. I say, Alhamdulillah. Vomiting means volcano. And where will it be? It has to be Indonesia because they call it a ring of fire. We may have some Indonesians here. They'll be very happy to hear this. The one man who will not be able to digest his dinner after this is Lee Kuan Yew. So the earth will vomit from its liver columns of gold and silver. And I expect it to be in Indonesia. And that will break the Zionist monopoly on gold. Praise be to Allah. This has been an attempt to use the Quran to explain the phenomenon of modern Western civilization, which has been created and sustained and now is hijacked by a Jewish-Christian Zionist alliance. And the Zionist alliance produced Pax Britannica, then Pax Americana, and then finally, after the Milhama, Pax Judaica. Now then, let's go one more time to the Prophet ﷺ. Hadith is in the Sunan of Abi Dawud. And he said, sallallahu ta'ala, he's speaking to Ma'az ibn Jabal, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And they're so close that he can touch it. And he said to Ma'az ibn Jabal, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Umran Bayt al-Maqdis, Kharabu Yathrib, Khuruj al-Malhama, Khuruj al-Malhama, Fath al-Constantiniya, Fath al-Constantiniya, Khuruj al-Dajjal. That when you see Jerusalem at center stage, built up, then look to see what is the status of Yathrib, Medina. When you see Medina playing absolutely no role in the state of forlorn desolation, crumbling, then look for the next event, which is going to be the Malhama, or the Great War, which has to be nuclear war. We should produce the dukhan of smoke. I only have another 5 to 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to squeeze it now. When the Malhama takes place, the next event which comes after it is the conquest of Constantinople, which is why Mustafa Kemal changed the name, because he doesn't want you to know this. But we say to Mustafa Kemal, get lost. The Turkish Muslims can be angry with me, that's their business. If Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam referred to the city as Constantinople, then that is Sunnah. And you can't stop me from using the name that the Prophet used, Constantinople. The conquest of Constantinople will take place after the Malhama. Forget that nonsense, that rubbish, that Sultan Muhammad Fatih fulfilled this prophecy 500 years ago. Forget that rubbish. That's rubbish. The Fathul Constantinople takes place after the Malhama. That means that Russia will survive the Malhama. Why? Because there's only one military significance. Only one. In the conquest of Constantinople after the Malhama. And that is that Constantinople commands the Bosphorus and the Straits of Dardanelles, through which ships can pass from the Black Sea into the Mediterranean Sea. And who has a navy in the Black Sea? Answer, Russia. That's why Crimea is so important for Russia, because the Black Sea fleet is based in Crimea. So the implication of this prophecy of Nabi Muhammad ﷺ is that Russia will survive the Great War that's coming. Russia will remain a naval power. There will be no air war after the Malhama. But Russia will remain a naval power. So the European part of Russia may be destroyed with the rest of Western Europe and North America. But the Asian part of Russia will still survive. And so Russia will remain a naval power. And the Russian Navy will be able to pass through the Bosphorus and the Straits of Dardanelles because the back of NATO will be broken. So we say, as we teach Ilmu Akhir al-Zaman, we tell NATO, you can take that and put it in your pipe and smoke it. This is Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam speaking. You can't defeat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. You cannot do it. You cannot defeat the Quran. No, you cannot. This is the Muslim speaking to you. It is only after the conquest of Constantinople that Dajjal will now emerge in human form. Why will the Great War take place? Let me quote for you one more hadith, and I still have 5 minutes. The Salafi critics hold on to their methodology that no one is authorized to interpret. Explanation is tafsir, interpretation is ta'wil. And no one is authorized to interpret the Quran or the Hadith other than Allah and His Messenger and the early Muslims. So when the Hadith says that Dajjal is going to fly on a donkey, the donkey will travel as fast as the clouds and the donkey will have his tail stretched out wide. The Salafi is waiting for the flying donkey. We have a different methodology. Our methodology is to recognize this as religious symbolism, and it refers to the modern aircraft. So it's up to you to choose. You want to follow and accept the Salafi methodology, or you want to accept ours, that's your choice. No need for any boxing gloves. So now let's come to this last hadith, which explains why the Malhama will take place and what's going to happen post-Malhama, with which we now end the lecture. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. People will fight over that gold. And 99 out of every 100 will be killed. And everyone will say, I will be the one who will survive. But the Muslims must not touch that gold. So those who hold on to that methodology are waiting for a mountain of the metal to come out of the river. And we say to them, that's your choice, so you wait. Our view is that this is religious symbolism. And we offer an interpretation. You don't have to accept it. We say, the mountain of gold has already come out. There's something underneath the river, which is destined one day to function as gold. And that which is underneath the river is in such a huge quantity that is symbolized by a mountain. And we say it's black gold, it's oil. When did oil begin to function as gold? If you study monetary economics, you would know that when they met at Bretton Woods in 1944, and then the International Monetary Fund was created in 1945, it gave to one currency, the US dollar, redeemability in gold at $35 an ounce. And all the rest of the paper money in the world had to bow and submit to His Majesty the US dollar. including the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. The US is not supposed to print more paper than they have gold, because they got to redeem at $35 an ounce. So then came the Vietnam War, which could be used as an excuse to print more and more paper to finance the war. It was a scam. The Vietnam War was a scam to destroy the integrity of the monetary system, whatever integrity it had. And the French saw through it. Charles de Gaulle saw through it. And he denounced the unjust and oppressive monetary system. And he kept on demanding for his US dollars to be redeemed in gold, and the US didn't like it at all. And so they got rid of Charles de Gaulle. But even after he was no longer president, and even after he died, the French continued what no Muslim country did. The French continued, except for a brief moment of Ahmad Sukarno, may Allah have mercy on his soul. The French continued with their attack on the system until September 1971, when the US said enough is enough, and they scrapped it. We gave our word, but we don't have to keep our word. And so the US dollar is in no man's land from 71 to 73. But the Mufti who is giving fatwa doesn't know about this. In 1973, Kissinger pulled off the greatest slave in history, because of the Arab-Israeli war and the Zionist war on both sides of the war. Kissinger was able to go to Faisal and make a deal. And Faisal fell for it. May Allah have mercy on his soul, he was a good man, rahimahullah, but he didn't have the knowledge. And Faisal agreed to what was haram, that the Saudis will sell oil for only US dollars and get the other Arab oil producing countries to do the same, and then get OPEC to do the same, and that was the birth of the petrodollar. And that was the moment when an ocean of oil began to function as a mountain of gold, with the birth of the petrodollar. But if you want to wait for the mountain of the metal to come out of the river, that's your choice. So the malhama is going to come. And this has been the cause, because 99 out of every 100 cannot be conventional warfare. It has to be weapons of mass destruction for 99 out of every 100 to be killed. So the malhama is going to be waged for protecting the monetary system, the petrodollar monetary system. Who is challenging it today? Russia. Russia is the leading power in BRICS. Who are BRICS? Russia, China, India, South Africa, Brazil. And they are now posing the first significant challenge to that petrodollar monetary system, bogus monetary system, which is why they are targeting Russia. Ukraine is just the excuse. They want Russia. They want Russia by the throat. Russia is not backing down. No, Russia is not backing down. Iran might back down, but not Russia. And so the malhama is coming. And it's going to be fought for the mountain of gold. Who will die in the malhama? Answer: those who are fighting for the mountain of gold, 99 of every 100 will be killed. Those who stay out of it, they don't touch that gold, they're not going to be killed. So I take no joy in saying that I expect that North America would not be livable after that. Goodbye to the United States, goodbye to Canada. It's no source of joy to me. That Europe will be gone. And who is going to be very happy when Western Europe and Russia and the European part of Russia and North America are gone? Who is going to be happiest of all? Answer: Israel. That's fine. Because in a post-Malhama world, Israel will still remain a commanding military power, and Israel will have control of money. I have taken an hour of your time and have compacted a lot of material into this small time frame. I hope I've not confused you, but I do hope I've succeeded in whetting your appetite to go back now to the Quran and be faithful to the Quran and study the Quran as it ought to be studied. And go back now to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Don't forsake it. And study the hadith as it ought to be studied with proper methodology. And may Allah bless all those who now make that effort. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Assalamu alaikum. Sheikh, I have a question. Have you come upon any literature that describes the role of Muslims outside of Middle East, example Southeast Asia, in the era of Ahlul Zaman? Thank you.
As soon as Israel comes out from behind the hijab to join in the big wars, we know, for example, that someone changed the Bible to declare that the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. So the whole of the eastern delta of Egypt is part of the Holy Land. So Dajjal cannot claim to be the Messiah unless Israel wages war on Egypt to extend its territorial frontier to encompass the entire eastern delta. That's one war that Israel has to wage, which is why NATO wanted to be in Libya. As soon as Israel comes out from behind the hijab to start waging her wars, which will be several wars, she's got to attack Pakistan. It's goodbye to Singapore. Goodbye to Singapore. Singapore cannot survive because of the foolish policies of Lee Kuan Yew. Little Singapore, a little island in a sea of Muslims all around you, and you have this stupidity to become little Israel. Huh? How can Singapore survive? Because the Malay people love Islam. And when Israel comes out to start waging those wars, no government in Malaysia can control them. No government in Indonesia can control them. Forget it. A Singaporean who leaves Singapore to go to Johor may not return home alive. Their anger will be so great. Well, then what is Singapore to do? The Singaporeans know that Singapore cannot survive once Israel starts to wage her wars. So the implication for Southeast Asia is that there's going to be synchrony between Singapore and Israel. That as soon as Israel lashes out, Singapore will have to lash out in order to gain more space. Singapore will have to take either part of Indonesia or part of Malaysia, maybe Johor, in order to become a more viable entity that can survive. That's my answer to you.
Welcome, second question. Verbal person. Verbal question.
The supremacy of paper money is now being reduced to electronic and digital money. And what can this ummah do to revert to dinar and dirham to get monetary independence? The answer is plain and clear. There's only one way to respond. That if you recognize dinar and dirham to be the sunnah, and if you recognize that we've abandoned the sunnah, then integrity requires that you must recover the sunnah that you abandoned. Return to gold and silver, dinar and dirham. Can the government of Malaysia accept that? No. Why? Because international law prohibits it. Even Dr. Mahathir was not aware that the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund, the Zionists created International Monetary Fund, prohibit the use of gold and silver as money. Yes. If you make haram what Allah made halal, that is shirk. And if we obey you, that is shirk. Which now brings me back to Ahmad Sukarno, the one leader in the whole world of Islam was Ahmad Sukarno. He has the image of having been a playboy. He loved women. All men love women. All men love women. So don't demonize Ahmad Sukarno. When Indonesia came into being, Ahmad Sukarno called some of his monetary advisors, the ulama, to discuss the subject of money. And Ahmad Sukarno, after consultation, decided that the Indonesian rupiah would be redeemable in gold. The 10 Indonesian rupiah would be redeemable in 5 dinar. I think that was the figure. There's a book written on the subject, but it's written in Bahasa, Indonesia. So Ahmad Sukarno wanted to keep dinar and dirham as money, and the paper money would be redeemable in gold, the way the US dollar was supposed to be redeemable in gold. Nobody else in the world of Islam, other than Ahmad Sukarno, or nobody else attempted this. Nobody. Dr. Mahathir made an effort only for government-to-government trade. So long as this IMF is there, you can't do it. Do you know that Indonesia withdrew from membership of the IMF? Do you know that? Yes. The one Muslim country which withdrew from the IMF was Indonesia. Nobody credits him today. Hugo Chavez tried it in Venezuela. May Allah have mercy on the soul of that Christian man. May Allah have mercy on the soul of that Christian man. Hugo Chavez. But he could not do it because it was too difficult. Evo Morales in Bolivia would try, would love to do it. Get out of the IMF. They put the rules as such a difficult to get out. But Indonesia did it. Came out of the IMF. Indonesia also came out of the United Nations, which was created by the Zionists. And that's why they had to get rid of Sukarno. And they used this Zionist plot which put this henchman Suharto in his place. And then Sukarno was poisoned and he died. What we can do is to wage a struggle to get our governments to agree to make gold and silver legal tender. The government of Malaysia is not prohibiting you from minting gold and silver, no. You can buy dinar and dirham in the market. Bank Negara is saying that this is barter, it's not violating the law. What we want is legal tender law. That is now halal to use dinar and dirham to buy and sell. That's what we want. Once you have those legal tender laws, then we have to explain to the people that if a man comes to buy your goods from you and he offers to pay for it with halal money, and you refuse the halal money and you want the haram paper money, Allah will punish you for that. That's when the ulama will have to come on board to explain to the people. That's the method to bring back gold and silver. But how many ulama are there who have said that this paper money is haram? How many? Next question.
Okay, I got one question from text. Salam, my question to Sheikh is, what is his view on Sunni versus Shia wars in Middle East? And as a Sunni, how should we treat the Shia people?
The process by which you can declare a Muslim to be a kafir is that you need a fatwa. The fatwa must not be issued by Disneyland. The fatwa has to be issued by someone who has the competence. A man of outstanding knowledge. When he issues the fatwa that this one is kafir or this group of kuffar, you have to get ijma'a, consensus. Only then can you say of the Shia that they are kuffar. Has this ever occurred? Well, if it has occurred, then how come that every administration which has had control over the Hajj, from the time of the Shahada of Sayyidina Imran Hossein radiallahu ta'ala anhu to this day, have permitted the Shia to perform the Hajj? Answer me, how come you're not protesting? If you say that the Shia are kuffar, why are you not protesting? When last did you protest? That they should not be allowed to perform the Hajj. They should not be allowed to enter into the Haram area. They're not Muslims. And yet you say they are kuffar. What nonsense is this? Don't come to me with any bogus statement. Well, look at this book and look at that book. The method is you have to have a fatwa of kufr. And the fatwa cannot come from Disneyland. The method is the fatwa has to have ijma'a. The answer is we've never had that in our history. Until then, the Shia are Muslims. If you say they are kuffar and they are not, then you become a kafir. You become a kafir. So when they invited me to the conference in Iran 2 weeks ago, I went. And it was the most wonderful gathering I could ever have. Nowhere else in the world of Islam could you have had it. Scholars from all over the world, many of them non-Muslims, who are top of the line in their scholarship on all different matters pertaining to the affairs of the world today. Top of the line. Academics, journalists, activists. And for all of these people to speak with complete freedom and no attempt to make us Shia. No. That was Iran. No Sunni country can do that today. None. That is the pathetic state of the Sunni world. They knew I was Shia. They knew I was Sunni. They knew what are my views on the Shia because it's there on the internet. They know what are my views on the Shia. And yet they invited me and they treated me with great respect. And they were very much interested in my ilmu akhirul zaman. And I'm likely to be invited again and again.
Right, please, the back first. Or you can queue them. If you could mention your name and where you're from, that would be better for me to record. International participation.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Kifi. My question is how to survive or how to face Malhama.
How do we survive the malhama? The verse of the Quran in Surah Al-Isra is instructive. Let's see if I can remember it now. وَإِن مِّن قَرْيَةٍ إِلَّا نَحْنُ مُهْلِكُوهَا قَبْلَ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُوهَا عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا كَانَ ذَلِكَ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَسْطُورًا. Not a single town or city will escape. All will be destroyed. And those which are not destroyed will be punished with terrible punishment. And this is a matter, something inscribed in the Kitab. So, number one, get out of the towns and cities. Get out of the towns and cities. Because if you're not killed with a nuclear blast, you'll be killed through anarchy and rioting and starvation, no water, no food, okay? Pestilence, because garbage cannot be collected, or all these things. Plague, killing people like sheep and all these things. Get out of the towns and the cities. Number two, the centers which will be destroyed in the Malhama are North America and Europe. So if you're Muslim, or if you're not Muslim but you are a friend of Islam, like the Christians, we say to you, get out. Make the hijrah while still there is time. How much time do we have? I normally do not reveal my dreams. No, I don't do that. But this time I have to speak. While I was in Iran, I had two dreams during the same one night. One after the other. And in both dreams I saw nuclear missiles being shot into the sky. Nuclear war. And I saw that Pakistan was a part of it. How long, therefore, do we have? The last time I had a dream like this was 2 years before 9/11, when I was an imam in Long Island. And I saw balls of fire falling from the sky onto skyscrapers in Manhattan. And the balls of fire were jumping from one building to another and then jumping out of Manhattan to go out into the rest of the world. I went on the mimbar and I gave a khutbah based on that dream. 2 years later, 9/11 came. So based on these two dreams I just had in Iran 2 weeks ago, I say, and Allah knows best, so we probably have about 2 years left before the Malham. Go and find a place in the remote countryside where you can have water and food. Water and food for your wife and for your children. And the smaller the better. Because a small community would not need much resources to survive.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Abdul Wahab from Iraq. Actually, my question was just as the brother mentioned before. But since you have been talking about Shias, I am from Iraq and we know the Shias very well. As you mentioned, Sheikh, for the fatwa and why they not prevented to go to Hajj, I think this is a political issue. And we know the Shias that they are worship Allah by killing Sunnis in Iraq. Thousands of Sunnis are killing every month. So, and you mentioned that Iran are a peaceful country. And of course, you know that they have Turkey, which they say different what they have in their heart. And I believe that the conference that you have talking about, which is very good and so on, this is for propaganda. And they have scored this propaganda by, now we are a Sunni committee, and you have given us this picture of Iran, which is a good picture for me. So just to highlight that here are kafir. And one scholar, Abu Hanifa, says that if a Muslim says that Shias are not kafir, then he is a kafir. And I'm not mentioning that to go and kill Shias, of course not. This is just to protect ourselves and then to know our enemy as well. Thank you very much.
Well, I think I've already made my position clear on the Sunni-Shia relationship. There's no need for me to repeat it.
Please grab the mic so that the whole audience can listen to your question, please.
Islamic Sheikh. My background is Pakistani, but I have been born and brought up in Singapore. My background is Pakistani, but I was born and brought up in Singapore, and I've just come in this morning to listen to your lecture, and I'll be going back this evening. My question is that on YouTube, you talk a lot about Yajuj Majuj, and what I want to know is that there's also, I don't know whether it's a hadith or whether it's in the Quran, but they talk about King Zulkarnain, where he basically made a wall to stop them from coming out. Now I do agree with your views on Yajuj Majuj, but then how does this hadith or this Zulkarnain thing link up when there's actually a wall? Is it fabricated? Can you please clarify that?
Okay, the question pertains to the subject of Gog and Magog, which is dealt with in the Quran in Surah Al-Kahf. And in that passage of the Quran which begins with the word وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ, and he built a barrier. They asked him to build a sad, and he built a rudder. And when he built it, Gog and Magog were contained and the world was safe. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ الْآخِرَةِ جِئْنَا بِكُمْ No, another one. I can't remember now the ayah. Zulkarnain said after he did, هَذَا رَحْمَةُ بِرَبِّي فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي. When that time comes, when the warning of my Lord is to take place, جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا, Allah is going to bring down this barrier. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. And then the warning of my Lord will come to pass. So one day the barrier will be broken down by Allah, and then Gog and Magog will be raised. I have a book outside entitled An Islamic View of Gog and Magog in the Modern World. I advise you to not read but study that book. However, to bring the subject into context now, Zulkarnain means either the one who possesses two horns, or someone who impacts on two ages. Qarn can mean a horn or it can mean an age. So proper methodology, how does Allah use the word? When we go to the Quran, we see that Allah has never used the word qarn to mean horn. And always in the Quran, He uses the word qarn to mean an age. And since Zulkarnain is in the Quran, we conclude Zulkarnain means one who impacts on two ages. In the first age, Zulkarnain, who possesses faith in Allah, travels to the setting of the sun, and the sun is setting in a water which is dark and murky. And the commentators of the Quran have no difference of opinion on this subject. They all identify it as the Black Sea. Crimea is located in the Black Sea. The Black Sea has only one outlet to the Mediterranean Sea, and that is through the Bosphorus and the Straits of Dardanelles. Okay? So in the first journey, he goes to the Black Sea, and he uses power to punish the oppressor. And he uses power to assist and liberate those who are oppressed and who have faith in Allah. And then, of course, he travels to the other direction, and then he travels to the third direction. When this is to be repeated, Qarnain, then we will see in history, which is Akhirul Zaman, we will see a power emerging in that region of the world. And that power will rest on foundations of faith. And that power will use power to punish the oppressor. And that power will use power to liberate the oppressed. Okay? And therefore that power will indeed friendly to Islam, because we are a people with zero tolerance for oppression. It is as plain as daylight to me, but you do not have to accept my view unless you're convinced it is correct. The second current is now playing out before our eyes. And what happened just a few months ago, was it 2 or 3 months ago, when Russia was able to take back Crimea, within 2 weeks, Russia did it. And now there is nothing in the world that they can do to force Russia to give up Crimea. The implication of this is that this is now playing out what is there in Surah Al-Kahf. The second of the current is now taking place. And the Russian takeover of Crimea is going to lead the way for the Malhama to take place, after which the conquest of Constantinople will take place. And the Russian Navy will then be able to pass through the Bosphorus and the Strait of Dardanelles into the Mediterranean, and that's goodbye to Israel.
My question is about Turkey, which is now building up their military near to Syria. Please you give us your view on this process and relation with the Hadith.
The Quran prevails, not the Hadith, the Quran. Do not take them as your friends and allies, the Jewish-Christian alliance, which gave us NATO. Turkey is a member of NATO. In consequence of which, Turkey is in manifest conflict with Allah's command in the Quran. But the question is, how did Turkey become a member of NATO? When Mustafa Kemal took over Turkey, the secular nationalist Turks, they established a policy of independence for Turkey. That we don't want Turkey to be aligned to this party or that party. And from 1924, when the secular republic was established, until 1952, Turkey remained independent, not aligned. What the Zionists did was to use Stalin, because the Soviet Union had a Zionist input within it. Yes. So the Zionists were able to use Stalin to make Turkey scared. The Soviet Union began making claims on Turkish territory and threatening Turkey. And the reason why Stalin was doing that was to force Turkey into the arms of NATO. That is why Stalin was doing it. And the Turks decided, well, we have no other option, we've got to join NATO. We got to join NATO because we are scared of Russia. We are scared of the Soviet Union. That's why we have to. The Zionists made Soviet Union a nuclear state. Turkey is not a nuclear state. How can we wage war with a nuclear state? So that is why Turkey had to become a member of NATO. But Turkey has continuously maintained the same profile that the Ottoman Empire had, which is hatred and hostility towards Rome. That's why the Ottomans were created, to sabotage. The Ottoman Empire was created to sabotage the end-time alliance of Muslims with Rome. That's why Hagia Sophia became a masjid. Shamefully, disgracefully, and manifestly sinfully, they took a Christian cathedral and made it a masjid to stab Rome in the back. That hundreds of years now the womb is still bleeding. If Turkey can realize that Russia is going to be in alliance with the world of Islam, And therefore the future for Turkey lies there, not with NATO. And Turkey seeks to get out of NATO, then Turkey will realize what kind of friends they have in Washington. I wish I had the time to talk more about Iran. There are two forces at work in Iran. No, two. There's one force in Iran which still wants to maintain the position of Imam Khomeini, rahimahullah, and therefore the profile of anti-oppression. Stay away from the oppressors. We're not going to make a deal with them at all. But you have another force in Iran which is now attempting to make a deal with Shaitan. Yeah. How is going to happen? What's going to be the end? I don't know.
Would be the last question from the floor, then I will ask two questions from the note, then we go for lunch.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I think I would like to say mabruk to Maulana for a very awesome and mind-blowing speech. I have a couple of questions, but before that, with your permission, I'd like to share my mind on your terminology, the term Islamic eschatology. It seems to me that is a misnomer. I would rather say it's more accurate if you use the term Quranic eschatology. My questions are, the resurrection of the Messiah, what is the language you will be using? I suppose we are all aware that he wasn't speaking Arabic, and so what language will he be using? Number two, when you say dinar and rupees, real, you mean Saudi Arabian dinar? Because it seems to me Saudi Arabia is an ally to the United States. And what is your opinion on the return of Islamic Caliphate, and how would it take place in the events of the Akhir Zaman? Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
The problem you face when you ask me 4, 5, 6 questions is I forget them all. So don't blame me. I can't remember now your questions. Sorry about that.
So let me repeat it. First question is about the language. What would be the language?
What language will Nabi Isa alayhi salam use when he returned?
Yeah. Is that right?
The Quran does not answer that. The Hadith does not answer that. I cannot answer it.
And the second question is about the Riyal, is a currency that will be used, because Saudi Arabia now is using Riyal, but
I have not mentioned anything in my lecture about Riyal today. I don't recall ever speaking about Riyal, no. I spoke about dinar and dirham, and I hope you would understand that dinar in the Quran is not made of paper.
so, but you are welcome to rectify.
Yeah.
I mean, you can stand again and rectify your question.
I have not spoken about Riyal, no. I've never spoken about Riyal, no.
I should say dinar rather than
Dinar, yes. Dinar in the Quran is not made of paper. When Allah speaks of dinar in the Quran, and Allah does speak about dinar in the Quran, and He does speak about dirham in the Quran. Okay? Dinar in the Quran is a gold coin, dirham in the Quran is a silver coin.
What was your last question, sir?
Oh, you don't remember it now.
I could only jot down two questions, but the last one is too quick.
Please enlighten us on the Islamic Caliphate, the return of.
Yeah, my opinion is that the Khilafah cannot be restored so long as we live in the Gog and Magog world order. But what is Gog and Magog? Nobody knows the subject because nobody teaches the subject. So I would suggest that you first read my book, An Islamic View of Gog and Magog in the Modern World. Unfortunately, we don't have a Malay translation as yet. If somebody wants to volunteer to translate it, I'll be very happy. We have Jerusalem in the Quran in Malay, Bahasa, okay? But we don't have Gog and Magog as yet in Bahasa, so you'll have to read it in English. This is the Gog and Magog world order. Because the rest of the ayah, I said, وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا أَنَّهُ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ Surah Al-Anbiya. That there's a ban placed on them, that they can never return to this town to reclaim it as their own. No, tak boleh. This town which we have destroyed, they will never haramun alayh. Ala qaryatin annahum la yarji'un. They can never return to reclaim it as their own. Now comes the next ayah. Hatta, until إذا فتح يأجوج ومأجوج, when Gog and Magog are released, وهم من كل حدب ينسلون, and they spread out in all directions, and with their invincible power they take control of power in the world. Then you see these people being brought back to the town. Which town? My answer, Jerusalem. So this is the proof that we now live in the world order of Gog and Magog. And so long as we're in the world order of Gog and Magog, the only kind of caliphate that can be established is one that is manufactured by the Zionists.
Right, so we have a few more questions here, but I choose the best one, the most interesting one. The first is, what do you think happened to MH370? Local issue.
The same thing that happened to the first aircraft, the same thing happened to the second aircraft. The people who attacked the first one attacked the second one, the same people. And if you want to know who they are, just go and ask, what's his name, the fellow in the White House? Barack Obama. Go on. He knows the answer. He knows the answer. And why did they do it? Because they want to force Malaysia to bend its knee. And the government of Malaysia is not prepared to bend its knee. Any government of Malaysia which bends its knee while Dr. Mahathir is still alive, they'll be finished. Finished. That is the status of Dr. Mahathir. I'm not here to beat any drums for him, not at all. But the man has a profile of being anti-imperialist. And it is because the government of Malaysia has refused to bow down that they are attacking Malaysia. So these two aircraft are gone, and I think there will be more attacks to come. But alhamdulillah, the government of Malaysia is not submitting.
Right, second question from these guys is, you have an outstanding knowledge and depth about the end time for eschatology, then is your safety at risk?
Is what?
Is your safety at risk? I mean, is the Zionist
Safe for mine?
Yeah.
Okay. Only one country in the world has banned my entry, and that's your country, Singapore. And you know why. But last October, I flew from my native island of Trinidad in the Caribbean next to Venezuela to Havana in Cuba to board an Aeroflot, Russian airline flight to Moscow. I had to deliver a lecture at the State University of Moscow. I was not allowed to board the flight. Why? Because the Americans did not want me to fly through their airspace in the Atlantic Ocean. So I had to fly back to Trinidad, and then I took the route from Trinidad to Caracas in Venezuela, and then Sao Paulo in Brazil, and then Johannesburg in South Africa, and then Port Louis in Mauritius, and then come to KL. Alhamdulillah, I had friends all along the way. So these two countries now, the United States and Singapore, I think it's an honor, really, to be banned by Singapore. And it's an honor to be banned by the United States, yeah. Since 9/11, I had a green card in the United States. I had lived in the United States for 12 years. But I left the United States 2 weeks after 9/11. And while I was on a lecture tour in South Africa, they attacked Afghanistan. Afghanistan was innocent. I then took a decision, I'm not returning to the United States. And I've never been back, not even in transit, to the United States. And then subsequently I took a decision that I'm not going to enter into the territory of any NATO member state. None. So if you're a member of NATO, I will not enter your territory. So for me to go to Tehran, they wanted to send me through Dubai. I said, what? Dubai? Not me. I'm not going to Dubai. They said, what about New Delhi? I said, no. What about Istanbul? I said, no. Well, what kind of man is this? Then they got me a direct flight from KL to Tehran. So it is a price I have to pay. I'm already paying that price. There's so many places I don't travel to. Okay? But if I am still alive, while yet preaching Islam the way I do, it can only be because of Allah's protection. And there's a lesson for you. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whosoever has fear of Allah in the heart, Allah will open for you a way out of your difficulty. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ.
So the last question for this session before we go for the lunch is, what is your comment on Palestine being recognized as a state now?
In the conference, there was a question from an outstanding political analyst. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Thierry Mason is his name. And he's now based, I think, in Beirut. But he's a prolific writer and an outstanding thinker. Thierry Mason. And he asks this question, why do you all object in the world of Islam to Israel? Is it because it is a colonial state? And is it because of the oppression of the government? If these things are changed, would your objection to Israel be removed? So I went to a Christian minister from Britain who was in the conference, who had expertise on Christian Zionists. He wrote a book on it, to discuss with him the subject. And I found that his view and my view were the same. And that is that we don't refer to this as Palestine. No. For us this is called Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, the Holy Land. Because Allah refers to it as Al-Ardul Muqaddasa. Ya qawmi idkhulul Ardal Muqaddasata allati kataba Allahu lakum, Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah refers to it as the Holy Land. If this is Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, the Holy Land, what is the regime? What is the regime that Allah will accept in the Holy Land? Not you and I, Allah. وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ, which are Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, number one. أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. A wicked regime can take control of that land and that land and that land and that land. But this land, a wicked regime will not be permitted. Allah will destroy you. So when Banu Israel violated their condition of being righteous in the Holy Land, Allah sent a Babylonian army, destroyed them, destroyed the masjid. When Allah allowed them to return, and again they returned with their wickedness, Allah sent the Roman army, destroy them, destroy the masjid. And if you come now with another oppressive regime in the Holy Land, guess what Allah says? وَإِنْ Huh? That's right. وَإِنْ عُدْنَا. You come back with your wickedness, I will come back with my punishment. So nothing will survive in the Holy Land. No secular state. No Palestinian secular state. Nothing will survive in the Holy Land other than the holy state of Israel, established by Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, by Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. And it was that holy Israel that Allah's messenger, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, restored in Medina. Except that there were two different models. This one was an exclusive model, that one was a plural model. But the foundation of the state was the same.
Yes, please. Very last one.
Assalamualaikum, Alana. Actually, I submitted like a dozen questions, but only 3 questions were picked.
3?
The last 3 questions were from
The most interesting one, what you said.
Yeah.
Ask one and I'll answer you, then ask the second one, and I'll forget.
Okay, it's okay. I'll just cut to the most important one. Actually, I read a couple of your books. It's really a privilege for me to be here. And actually, I just want to clarify because you mentioned that how sports is related somehow in a way, like alliance with the Jewish and the Christians in a way. You mentioned like monetary, financial, and one of it was sports. And I work in the sports industry, so I just want to know how is that related and how can I, avoid that? Yeah.
Okay. Allah speaks in the Quran about your relationship. How do you relate with people? And He says, أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُمْ. That you must have love and affection for your fellow believers. Treat them with love and affection, your family. But you must be strong in your opposition to the enemies, the kuffar. أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ. The Zionists are waging war on us. The Zionists are attacking Islam all the time. Relentless war on Islam. Okay? Australia, part of it. Canada, part of shamelessly Canada, part of it. Britain, part of it. France, part of it. United States, part of it. Okay? So we should have strong relationship with these people. Ashidda'u al-kuffar. But ever heard about something called FIFA World Cup? Huh? When Germany is playing, who bothers about Islam? Germany is playing Brazil. I want to see that match. Okay? And when you and your enemy can play together on the battlefield of football, soccer, or cricket, they have hatred in their hearts for you. They're cutting you and stabbing you in your back behind you. But you meet with them on the cricket field and you meet them on the football field and it's all pleasant and smiling. Is that going to be pleasing to Allah? Because you are defying the Quran. Well, Allah says in the Quran, Muhammadur Rasulullah, وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم. Those who have fashioned and constructed these mega events of sport, the Olympics, World Cup football, World Cup soccer, World Cup cricket, this and that and the other. They have done so with a political agenda in mind that you don't know about. Their political agenda is to get you to come together in a friendly way with them while they're still waging war on you. And you, with the intellectual acumen of cattle, fall into the trap.